Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about how to speak better, speak more eloquently, speak and talk as if you know what you're talking about, slash be charismatic enough for people to focus on you. I think it's one of the few talent, skills, abilities that I have, and I've gotten a fair amount of questions, especially after I've done YouTube, but throughout my life about how can you speak as if you know what you're talking about, how do you grab the attention of people, how do you speak without stopping, how do you flow so consistently. I do want to start by saying, with a full disclaimer, that a lot of these things, as with most things in life, have to do with the way that you're brought up, what you're born with, natural ability. I don't know if you're a nurture or nature person. I'm more of a nature person. In general, I need to explain who I am slash why I think I'm good at these things to begin with, outside of the things that I somewhat take cautious of, somewhat practice in my daily life that I'm about to teach you. Most of these things I think are just things that I was brought up with, born with, whatever you want to believe, things that you can't really do through practice, unfortunately. But stay tuned because there are a couple things that I think you can keep in mind that most people don't do to speak better. For starters, I come from a family of speakers. My parents speak a lot and they talk a lot. All we do when back home is speak. They also had me very young, which means that they catered to me as if we were relatively friends. They talked to me as if we were friends. I was a baby amongst slightly older babies. Obviously, my parents were parents, but at the same time, my parents were quite young when they had me and young throughout my childhood. So we were talking constantly. On top of that, my extended family are also talkers. And especially when I was young, back in Korea, until I was 6 or 7, I was constantly surrounded by my family, and I was an only child for a decade, which means all the attention came to me. So all the conversations that occurred in my family was between me and other adults, meaning that I was probably speaking with adults for a lot of my nurturing growing up life, meaning that my vocabulary, the way that I speak, the topics that I spoke became a bit higher than the average baby or child. On top of that, when I moved to the United States, I only spoke Korean at home and spoke obviously only English outside the home, meaning that I was able to double up on language and constantly get that language practice in without actively doing it for the purposes of learning language. It was just a part of my natural life. On top of all that, as you guys can tell through the camera, I am someone that enjoys speaking in general, probably naturally as a part of my personality. So it's something that I get to practice whether people like it or not every single day. And practice makes perfect. And if I look back in my life, whether it be through YouTube or in social life, everything that I do technically centers around speaking. And this was only fostered further by my liberal arts education at my college, where most of my work had to do with sharing in class or thinking about my thoughts and relaying them through speeches or presentations. Talking, in essence, has always been a part of my life and something that I was naturally born with, nurtured through, and gratefully fostered through by my family. So if you are poor at speaking, if you stutter a lot, if you say like or a lot, or if you don't have the right words and you're not sure how people that you might be watching online, how do they speak so well? A lot of it just could be their upbringing, and it's not your fault per se. It just has to do with the fact or the way that they've been raised. And there's probably plenty of things that you do that I can't do because I wasn't raised that way. For example, I'm very bad at sports because I didn't grow up with sports, and my parents are definitely not athletic people. All that aside, what are some things that you can do if you suck at speaking? What can you do to look, at least appear like you're better at speaking? And just like the douchen something smile, where if you pretend to be smiling, you're actually laughing and that happiness circles around. I also think that speaking is one of those things where if you pretend to be good for a while, you can actually become good. So here's a couple tips, things that I would do if I sucked at speaking, but if I knew the knowledge that I knew, things that I think make you better at speaking. Practice makes perfect, as I said before. If you speak a lot, then you will get practice in it. Obviously, bad practice does not make perfect, but if you are surrounding yourself with people that speak well, or if you're surrounding yourself with people that are affirming your speech and giving you good feedback on your speech, you will inevitably get better. But you have to practice and continue to speak together. Along with speaking, I think reading is also important. Something that I did a lot when I was young, trying to get better at again when I'm older. You need to understand and be able to interpret thoughts for you to be able to relay them, and also gain more and more of a eloquent and advanced vocabulary so that you sound smarter than you actually are. There are certain words that I think people that are better at talking use to make themselves look like they're better at speaking, maybe naturally or actively. Granted, on that note, I think it's far more important to communicate your ideas clearly as opposed to use hard words that no one would understand. The hardest way of communicating is to talk to someone that might not understand something or isn't at the level that you are, but still be able to convey what you're saying. That is the utmost perfection of language and communication. As I've noted before, it's bad to say likes and ums and have stutters. If you can come up with stutter/filler words that actually sound smarter than like and ums, it's the best way to do it. There's things that I do where I am still thinking and I'm still actively thinking about what I'm about to say next, but things that I use to buy time. A part of that is hand motions as well. When you go like this or like this and act like this, perhaps it's a little distracting, but it seems like you're more confident in what you're about to say and you're actually thinking through what you're going to say. So hand motions also important. Filler words also important. Pauses on that note also important. I think I'm someone that tends to just go and blurt and train wreck my way into speech. And sometimes I do make mistakes. But those that are really good at talking, they pause and they wait. And they're okay with silence and they talk very slowly and let people understand that what they're about to say is something that's well thought out and it's something that they've planned all along, but also delivered very eloquently. I also think that looking good is important. I'm talking about physically looking good. There's something with confidence psychologically where if you know that you're being presented very well, then you're probably going to get a bit more confidence and be okay with what you're saying. Human psychology, fortunately, unfortunately, if you want to blame the world, I'm sorry. But if you see someone that's good looking, well-dressed speak versus someone that's poorly looking and poorly dressed speak, you're going to think the former is probably better than the latter, given their skill sets of speaking are the same. So if you want to hire your chances of looking better and sounding better, you probably also want to look better. And that is something that you can actually put visible, purposeful effort in and make a big, big difference. If you're really ambitious like me and you really care about speaking well and you want to carry the conversation amongst wherever you are, sitting placement, where you are, is also very important. I tend to like and enjoy carrying conversations in the middle of attention because I am an attention seeker and I like being the one that MCs the conversation. I typically, wherever we go, and people are going to probably think I'm crazy, but people that know me well have always seen me do this. I typically sit in the middle of any table arrangement or any room so that I'm the one that's carrying the conversations. It's much easier to facilitate a conversation when you can see all around, left and right. I think that's probably a key to being somewhat of an attention seeker, but if you're trying to get practice, I think it's worth doing. It also puts the pressure on you because everyone is going to be looking at you at some point, meaning that you have to deliver something. One other small tip that I think I'm getting to learn as I become more mature, especially if you're in a group setting, is to be able to include people. Sometimes the people that you remember as the best speakers aren't necessarily the people that speak the most. In fact, they're the people that encourages other people to speak, that conveys questions and brings people into the conversations that wouldn't have otherwise. It's something that I think I'm becoming less selfish about as I become more mature and recognizing, oh, that person might not be speaking that much, even though they clearly want to speak, or this person has been sitting around for a very long time. Perhaps they don't want to speak, but maybe they would if you give them the spotlight. As a person that's carrying the conversation, that is okay with speaking out of turn and being able to raise that hand, I think it's somewhat of your responsibility, my burden, to bring those people into conversations and say, hey, Billy Bob, what do you think about this? People will recognize that, and I think that almost in turn makes you a greater facilitator, and greater facilitators are somewhat more charismatic and more important than great speakers. I'll take time today to talk about my thoughts on how to speak better. Obviously, there's no one rhyme or reason plan to become a better speaker. And as I noted at the beginning of the video, I think a lot of it comes down to how you've been raised, what practice you're getting, what role you're in, what family you come from, and your personality, all of which align pretty well for me as someone who I think naturally speaks fluently and someone that is continuously speaking better as I've changed roles, become different people, grown up. I'm good at adapting to whatever speech is needed. On that note, I do think one thing that I did forget to say is that you could be a great speaker in some groups, other poor speakers in other groups. The setting matters, the environment matters, your comfort zone with whoever you are with also matters. But long story short, I think there are things that you can apply to become a better speaker. And as with all things, you just got to do more of it to become better. Making YouTube videos is definitely one practice that you can do, and something that I would actually give a tribute to, thank for my drastic increase in speech ability in the past 3-4 years. I thank you guys for watching me babble on about speaking, which is pretty meta. I'm talking about talking. I hope this video helped. If you have any questions on how to speak better, feel free to put a comment below or book time with me so that I could speak with you and we could perhaps practice. As with life updates, I've been practicing Spanish a little bit recently, so trying to trilingual again and going home to California. By the time you're seeing this video, I'm probably already there playing golf with my dad and practicing Korean there. I thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys have a fantastic whatever day you're watching this video and continue to speak on and aim to be eloquent. I will see you guys next time. Let's go.